Okay. Hold on. You guys ready?
Yes.
Sounds great.
You let me answer.
It is 6:30. We will call the August 3rd Planning and Zoning Commission to order. It seems really loud, doesn't that seem loud? Dang.
We revised the speakers, so.
So they're louder?
Apparently.
Hey, how about that? Roll call. Let's see. Brooks.
Here.
Mike.
Here.
Brian.
Present.
Thomas.
Here.
Melissa.
Here.
Rob.
Here.
We have a quorum. Item number 3, I would entertain an approval of the agenda.
Second.
Hold on, before we vote on that. Do I want to do it now? Do I want to table item number 9 now or when we get to it?
Just want to get to it. There's nothing
When we
to
get to it?
motion.
Okay. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 4, I'll look for a motion to approve the consent calendar.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 5, the approval of minutes of the July 20th, 2023 regular meeting. Oh my, what are you gonna do later, Alyssa? You weren't here. I know. Who's gonna do? Oh, jeez. Okay.
Okay, so, in the two, wait a minute.
Yep, there we go. That is.
There we go. In the two paragraphs that start, public hearing was held to consider a variance application for signage. Okay, so in the last line of each of those paragraphs, it says signage calculated as if Aspen Park Road was a dedicated street. Should be as if Aspen Park Road were a dedicated public street. Because if it says it was a road, that means in the past it was. Were means hypothetically. So we don't want to give anybody the impression that at some point in history it was a dedicated public street.
Okay.
Yeah, but I cannot offer a motion because I was not here for that meeting.
Also move.
Motion?
I've got a comment on the two paragraphs regarding the variance application for the gravel parking for hockey and wellness. I thought we struck out the qualification as determined by the city engineer. I thought I even went back through the meeting minutes, or the meeting video, and it was just the utilities and the road completion. That way, 10 years down the road, if personnel changes, people go, well, what's the determining factor? That's why we talked about it at the meeting, that was the requirement, was once the road and the utilities were in, then they would have to follow suit and pave theirs.
Okay. Does that seem right? Is the as determined by the city engineer catch-all at the end? No?
I mean, somebody should probably define what the completion is then.
Okay.
What does completion mean? Or you could say by city
I
council if
gotcha.
you don't want a city engineer.
Yes, then I say we probably should leave it in because somebody has to define the completion, yes. I would agree with that. But that will include everything, so, okay.
I guess isn't completion per the contract that the city has with the contractor for completion of the road and completion of the utility work? I don't deal with engineering contracts, but typical vertical construction contracts, you have a closeout stipulation in your agreement, final payment, all of that changeover of information.
Utilities are in. What I would interpret that as is Aspen Road is paved and substantial completion is met with the contractor at the time. So we would let a contract to pave it and curb it, and once they've met substantial completion, that would be completion.
Would you say that was determined by the city engineer? I mean, that's typically how we determine completion of projects around here.
Yeah, I mean, it could be city engineer. I kind of look at it, it's going to be pretty self-evident when it's substantially complete.
Okay.
Okay, because my understanding that the discussion that kind of started all of this was, we were originally just going to say, you know, within 2 years as determined by the city engineer. And then we said, well, what are the determining factors? And then but if the way it's written in here is to intend completion determined by,
Yes,
okay,
that's what I would say.
okay.
But
Then
we
I-
do
then
that
I'm
with
okay- then I'm
all of our
okay with that.
projects. Okay.
Sorry.
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. It's usually not that hard to approve minutes, but here we go. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 6 is public comments. Anyone wishing to address the commission may do so now. If you are on the agenda, we shall get to you. Anybody like to address the commission? Come on up. Yep. If you would just press the button that says talk and give your name and address for the record.
Mike Rickus, is it working?
Yep. Uh-oh. Oh, we're having an equipment failure. Hold on just 1 second. As you can tell, our microphones are working better now. It's really loud. Dang. Well, you know.
Didn't know I was supposed to bring my own battery.
I was going to use my wand, but
Hey, guys.
yes.
Thanks for all you do. Mike Rickus, 508 East Lakeview Drive. Just got a letter about the change you want to do on 501 East Aspen. Just curious as to where is 501 East Aspen? The only sign I see out there is west of the railroad tracks. There's no sign east of the railroad tracks if that's the address. And also, just curious as to what the plan is for that.
501 East Aspen is, oh, look at this. Hey, Tammy, we're going to need the screen. Might as well pull it up.
For the rezone, right?
Correct. From R1,
Yep. So there used to be a house in here. So we replanted this whole triangle section. This is where the pond is. This is where Aspen Boulevard is.
Oh,
So this is Aspen Park in here on this side. So we have this triangle here, that's a detention pond. There used to be an old house there.
correct. I'm at 508 right there
So
on the corner.
all we're doing is, since we replanted it, part of that is zoned R1. The other part of it is zoned NRC.
Correct.
And we're just placing that with an institutional zone, it's gonna stay a detention pond.
We're just rezoning all the city properties into institutional zone, so they're all consistent.
That's what I was wondering.
Yep.
So there is no plan to build anything there, you're just rezoning it so nobody could build a house there
Yeah, we own it, we're
from,
not.
keeping it from R1?
Yeah, we're not gonna sell it.
Okay.
I should've
Because when we
said
built
that.
last year, we were promised by our developer that the city, you guys promised, of course, it's words, you know, but he said that the city told him nothing would ever be built there, so
No, we never told him that, but we have no
Right.
plans.
I don't have it in writing either, so. That's what I'm just curious is if, I didn't know if a church was planning to go there or a city office, since you're gonna rezone it institutional.
Nope,
Okay,
no plans.
perfect, thank you. I was just curious, on the sign, why is the signage only going into Aspen Park and it isn't over in the other area where it's actually gonna happen? Well, it seems deceiving and being not transparent with the public, so. Okay. Well, because there's other signs there for the rezoning of the Aspen Park, so people are being confused as to what sign does that belong to. And it's not over on the, it should be on the east side of the railroad tracks, to clarify. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? Okay. Hearing none. Item number 7, the TIF District number 8. Starting on page 12. So, Brian. Yes. Would you like to at least give a brief summary of what a TIF district is?
TIF
Unless-
district,
Unless you'd like the gentleman to come up and,
Toby is probably much more eloquent than I am.
Toby,
Toby Morris.
come on up.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Toby Morris with Collier Securities. I know I've been here before you, talking about tax increment districts. So what I'll do is give you what I would say maybe the 10,000-foot view, but by no means can we not go down to the 1 foot. It's a moving piece that involves really the use of future property tax dollars to go back to offset infrastructure costs. I look at it as one of our most powerful economic development tools we have in the state of South Dakota. As we've gone through the inflationary period the last couple of years, we see the Fed raise the rates again here last week. What's really stymieing a lot of development in this state is infrastructure. What a TIF is not, it's not a tax break for the developer, but rather it's an incentive to build out, to put the infrastructure in. And as that infrastructure's in, it creates the homes, and within the homes, that generates the taxes, which then goes back and pays off the infrastructure. And when we construct these plans, a lot of the things I like to first focus on is one, you're going to see in here, there's no developer fee. Rather, what we look at it as, what are the true costs associated with it, and the development that, and I think you're very familiar with Russ being in front of you, over the past year or so. We have a little bit of a different twist to this, and what I would say is a very positive twist. Because of the growth of Brandon, because of the limited resources, what we looked at to develop this was a partnership between the city and the developer, where in the past, all of your TIFs have gone to offset the developer expenses. We know there's going to be some strain on the city budget from the ancillary development that will happen from the water, sewer, lift stations, and so forth. So what we did is we set the increment at 15 million is the maximum that this will pay. But 20% of the revenue that comes in, so you figure for every 20 cents of every dollar is going to go back into the city. And that's where we look at it as a revenue split to make this possible going forward. There were some conditions we worked directly with the city on, so it wasn't offsetting necessarily the single-family homes, but it was the multifamily. And in the TIF plan, we tried to lay that out where it was a cost only associated with that. And so, I think, Russ, what were we talking, probably 15, 18 million total project costs, but the ask is only related to with what is associated on that multifamily side for the most part, the townhomes, duplexes, I guess, how that you would like to classify on that. The important thing tonight is, why do we have a public hearing? It's full disclosure. We're here to make certain that the public is aware. We've sent the notices to the taxing entities, the school, the county, the city, the water district. A lot of people will say, oh my gosh, we're taking money away from the school, and that's not the case. What we look at this is, we have a letter certified by Department of Revenues. We've taken this TIF plan before them and said, hey, this is what we intend to do, and how would you classify it? Because there's a mix of some commercial, because there's a mix of some residential, what they did is they classify it as economic development. The state's not in the business of telling cities what is economic development. You go to Eagle Butte, and they're going to say, hey, we need a veterinarian, we need an electrician. You come to Brandon, it's going to be housing, commercial. So they view it and look at it again as a global view. And why that is important is because the school's general fund is held harmless with that classification. And so that's something that we always achieve. I know if it's one that we don't get that, or industrial, then I simply walk away, because I'm not going to be part of impacting the school's budget, or I'm not going to be part of raising taxes. And this TIF does neither one of those. It's no different than the one for the economic development when the Hagues came before you here. You saw Marwin Hofer and his WDP. What would that do? I think is what he classified. which, as you can see the success there, I think you're going to have some really large announcements coming forth. And that all starts with putting infrastructure in the ground. And so that's what I hopefully have laid out before you tonight. Alicia, you scare me to death with your beautiful grammar writing, so I'm wondering where my mistakes might be. But nonetheless, that's how we have this laid out before you tonight as an economic development for the infrastructure related, and most importantly, a revenue split between the developer and the city of Brandon.
So, since you're there, I see this is only the eighth one that we've used in the city of Brandon. The only eighth TIF district that we've had. Historically, we've used them for things like industrial development.
Correct.
I know. Can you explain what the difference between this and what we have done, like, say, in the Rovang Industrial Park is? Are you familiar with that one at all?
Correct. So if you look at the evolution of TIFs, when I worked for Janklow back in 96, 97, the TIF was a truly hated word, and all he ever wanted to use it for was industrial. Industrial meaning your industrial park, nothing else. As time has evolved, Governor Rounds allowed and expanded to economic development, and that meaning really, do you have something zoned in there commercial, whether it's everything from a dog groomer to a Dollar General to whatever. And so those are the two main classifications. Governor Dugard came in 2016, 17 when we started seeing some of the housing crisis around the state, and we had it labeled affordable housing. Well, affordable housing restricts the price of that first-time home buyer, and so that's where you get a mix where you could see, homes in here on the lower 300s. But what we found with some communities is when you have just that set of homes, you don't have step-up. We would find that when, say, like in Harrisburg was an example, we didn't have step-up homes. So you might start over there, end up here, and then somewhere back over there. So I think this really brings a nice mix of what you would call that step-up community to keep the residents here in Brandon.
Sure. And from my understanding, which these are very difficult, but the benefit to the city is we collect property taxes, but it's not nearly what we get in sales tax revenue.
Exactly.
And we are basically told as a city that we're running on sales tax. The school district runs on property tax. They get their money from a fund from the state.
Correct.
Where we tend to benefit from a TIF district is it does generate sales tax because as we build things, we collect sales tax off of all those materials.
I do a lot of advising in the cities, and I always say you live and die by sales tax.
Yep.
That's why counties want a sales tax, and they lobby every year.
Yep. Any other questions for Toby? He knows more than me.
So, these confuse me, these TIFs do. So, my understanding is it basically, it eliminates the increased taxation value on the property for a period of time, is that correct?
No, that is not correct. You will still see the same valuation increase that you see on all the homes, because that's set by Department of Equalization within Minnehaha County. What happens is the revenue that is derived within a district goes specifically back to the authorized use to pay for that. And in this case, that's where you see the infrastructure that the city is taking on and primarily the developer's taking on. And so that's where it reverts back. One thing I like to do is I like to input the interest rate because it doesn't turn into an annuity. And I've seen that happen because people are like, well, we'll just let this interest rate ride and just collect it. And to me, that's not correct. So all the ones I've presented to you before have a cap. In this case, you will never pay more than X amount or 20 years, whichever comes first. And the nice thing for the city, again, is the revenue split.
The easiest way to explain TIF, you have a bare piece of ground. They're paying $100 a year in property taxes. Somebody comes in and builds something on it, they're now paying $1,000 a year in property taxes. That original $100 still gets split up between the county, the city, and everybody else. And then the city gets to keep the $900 increase to pay off the infrastructure costs that were incurred to improve the property. So it's not going to pay for the building, it's going to pay for basically the ground or below. So once the debt on the TIF district is paid, it gets decertified and then everybody gets their cut of the $1,000. So in the meantime, the city gets to retain the increase.
So in this situation, where it's a little bit different, is that instead of the money going back to pay for the improvements, the city gets to pocket 20%, is that
Correct.
correct?
Because
And 80% goes to pay for the improvement.
correct. And like all of the TIF districts that we've done recently, this is a developer-paid infrastructure, so we're rebating back to them the TIF. Instead of us incurring the debt and risk, we have no risk in this, and then we retain the 20%, which is something new for us. Because we know that we've got some infrastructure costs coming along with all the development that's going on the east side of town. We'll have to start improving Aspen Road in the near future.
Okay.
Anybody else have any questions?
And you said that the debt limit on this is 20 years or what dollar amount?
Or 15 million,
15 million?
whichever comes first.
Whichever comes first, okay.
And our projections are always very conservative, and, you know, I think working with a veteran varsity developer, they tend to really build out much quicker than you project.
Yeah.
One more question from a procedural standpoint. So my understanding, I kind of read through the South Dakota codified laws for this chapter that applies to this. So this has to come to P and Z because we basically approve the district definition and boundary, correct?
Correct.
The plan is technically approved by city council.
Correct.
Whether they agree with the numbers and
Yep.
all of that. So tonight, we're just approving the boundaries of the district.
Yeah, you're just looking at the proposed land use that's in the TIF district and the boundaries of it.
And if I could further, it's a public hearing, so
Yeah.
it's the smell test. We want to be transparent.
Yes. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Go ahead, Mike.
And just, so if the tax revenue goes to pay off the infrastructure, then the supporting things like schools and fire and stuff, they're not getting that tax benefit until it's paid off, is that right?
The school is.
The school
The
is.
school's made whole by the
Correct.
state.
Right.
Okay,
So the school remains harmless.
Yes.
okay.
It's an interesting formula, and not to get too deep into it, but schools are really funded by enrollment. So the more enrollment, the more that they receive from the state aid is how that it works. So school will tell you, hey, look, if this is bringing families and homes to the area, that increases their enrollment, they're getting higher state aid in return.
Anybody else have any questions? Do we need a motion to approve or a motion to recommend? Go ahead.
On page 13 of our packet, number 2, under findings, it says the planning commission finds that there is a statutory authority to refer that district to the City of Brandon Commission. Do you mean the council, city
Yeah,
council?
it's council.
Should be council, my apology.
There's
Okay.
a couple little things like that throughout this, but, and everything's on here is like it's already done, already approved, which is okay, because if we approve it, then, like on page 12, it pretty much states that it's done, and we just gotta put our name in there, somebody.
No, that's just an abstract of the minutes for who makes the motion in the second. And when it comes to
That's what I
resolution.
thought, yeah.
Yeah, resolutions are typically pre-written
Yep.
for the council and or the commission to consider instead of just a regular motion.
Correct. Hold on. Are you done, Thomas?
There was one, a couple other. On, what page was that? Oh, on page 32, it says it's going to be 42,250,000 for 130 townhouses.
what would be the corresponding page to the plan? Are you looking
Oh,
at
let me find it.
17.
17? So what we do there is we try to project what are the total non-TIF related. If you take those 130 townhomes, we're saying, hey, that could be $42.5 million, just to show that that's where our increment is going to be coming from, but that is not an expense associated with the TIF. The most important thing to look at is, and we always have this certified with engineer companies, is if you look at, I have page 20 from DGR, where we start listing out line item by line item by line item. Now, granted, it's our best estimate at this time, but the controlling number is still 15 million. If they open up bids and that thing's at 17, no, the controlling number's at 15.
Well, my point was that 130 townhomes divided into that 42,250,000 would be 340,000 each. And on the chart in the back, where it lists all the prices of everything, it says there'll be 325 for townhouse homes. It just seemed a little confusing.
Great question, great mathematical question. So when you assess a house at, you may have a taxable value at $1, but it might be assessed at 90. So what I do for the projections is I break it down, because if I put 340 or 400, it throws my increment way up. Again, that's part of my conservativeness when I look at this, because the bank gets a copy of this and they take me to the boogeyman committee too and do the exact same questions, and that's where I need to be as conservative as possible. That what if a recession really does come on? What if Russ has no choice but to sell the homes at 325, 310? So it's really more of a stress test on that. And that's a great question and a pickup of the numbers.
Yeah, that was on page 39 dash 4. It showed townhomes at 325, yeah. Just a little
You-
question.
Got anything else?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So when you have in, the same thing he was talking about where it says projected amount of sale for 130 townhomes, are you talking about specifically townhomes? Or would that also include like single-family dwellings and?
So on our page 24, we take into account all of those because that's within the district as a whole, and whatever in the district is the revenue that's generated.
Right.
And so
So-
that, oh, go ahead.
Would it be more accurate to say living units?
No, because we have different prices, and this is where I really get into the detail. I have different prices of the homes, the single family, the town, sort of averaging together, because your townhomes are gonna sell less than, say, a single family.
And thank you. And the only, Brian Reed, this is kind of diverting, but I bet some people who listen to this meeting on the internet or whatever don't know what the difference between a council and a commission is. Could you say what that is?
Sure. Commissions are really an outdated, unusual form of government where commission members are elected basically as department heads. So you've got a public safety commissioner, or you've got a streets commissioner, or finance commissioner. We have a city council form of government. We don't use the commission form. There's a very, very few. Yankton, I think, is still commission. Canton, maybe? I can't remember. Very few.
Now, I always learned, so you'll have to tell me if I have to not think this anymore, but I always learned that commissions are elected at large, where councils are elected in zones like Ward 1, Ward 2, Ward 3.
Yes and no. Yes, commissioners are always elected at large because they don't represent a ward. They're elected as a department head. City councils, if the city is divided up into wards, and they're elected by wards, but there are a number of cities that have at-large elections for all of their councilors.
So even if the city council, if they're elected at large, they're still called councils?
Correct. Technically, they're aldermen.
Okay, great civics lesson. Can we go back to the TIF district now? Anybody got questions specifically to the TIF districts?
And letter D of, it's on my page 14. You said that originally they designed this TIF for commercial or industrial rather? Originally? This
Yes.
wording on here doesn't include residential.
The,
I'm just-
the concept of the TIF district
Yeah.
was originally sort of put in place to try to attract industrial/jobs.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that in D here, we should also include residential, because that's primarily what's gonna go into this. There's only a couple commercial.
Are you looking at the resolution in itself?
Yeah, item D, 2D. At least 50% of the real property within the district will stimulate and develop the general economic welfare and prosperity of the city, or the state, through the promotion and advancement of industrial, commercial, manufacturing, agricultural, and natural resources development.
Correct, and that comes right out of codified law word that we list in there. You know, our laws were copied from the state of Illinois when the true intent of a TIF was for blight. And so as they've come forth, we put this in here as the findings because it does have a commercial component to that. So the reason you always put finding is to make certain if it ever gets challenged, we can say, no, we had a finding in here that there was commercial.
Right. So,
And it also states the general economic welfare and prosperity of the state.
Correct.
So any improvement is considered improvement to the general welfare of the state.
so it doesn't matter that 90% of it is residential.
No.
Okay.
On that same topic, could we strike C? Because there is no blighted property. There is no blighted area within this district.
So on that, it's not less than 25% and no more than 50%. So we're saying there's not less than 25% of blight. And here's a great argument that has come up over years. At first, when we started doing TIFs in the late 90s, I'm telling a cornfield is blighted. Well, what's the definition of blight? We in South Dakota take it very personal that it's not downtown inner Chicago. But a real definition of blight is lack of infrastructure, lack of services, lack of everything. So if you're taking a piece of bare land, and we had everywhere from Meyer Henry give us opinions sometimes to legislative audit. Frankly, our codified law should be updated, but at the same time, we try to stay away from the TIFs because the legislature's pendulum can swing too hard, and we like to have it open so that the local government has the control inside of how they want to do the TIFs.
So undeveloped property actually matches the definition of blighted.
Oh, it's an ugly word in South Dakota.
That's the way in
It-
Minnesota and or in Iowa as well.
Any other questions?
I do.
Otherwise, go ahead.
So I do have one more question. So this is to cover a portion of the infrastructure for the entire district, right?
Correct,
Not all of it.
correct.
And then when you say when it goes out for bids, it may be more than 15, it may be less than 15. How are we delineating what portion is covered by the TIF and what portion is not covered by the TIF?
So in the developer agreement, they'll have to certify the cost with the city. And at that point in time, you'll see, probably more of an AIA document that's brought forth from the engineer once the bids are open, line item by line item. And you can generally cost segregate it on a lineal foot basis for water, sewer, however, because you'll be bidding it out as a whole, but then we'll delineate for that, and the proportionate amount to that. That's, the chicken and the eggs are TIFs. We're forced to put these plans in place because you can't do them retroactive, so you're trying to gain the broadest route, but yet then the developer agreement really narrows it down to where it keeps the city on the offense.
So what, I guess, in theory, what portion is covered by the TIF?
I would say it's about 60-some%.
Yeah, it's.
But what's the,
The zoning is actually kind of dictating the infrastructure that's TIF eligible, and that's the infrastructure that's not. So anything that's I shouldn't say anything, but most of the stuff in the single-family home is not TIF eligible. We're not gonna TIF single-family homes.
So the area, the infrastructure that supports the R2 and R3
And
Is-
GB.
and the business.
institutional.
Okay, okay.
Yep.
And so then you're gonna take like your mobilization costs, your grading costs, and you're gonna allocate it based on, well, you know, 80% of it, 80% of our overall costs were for R1, and so we're gonna take 20% of our mobilization costs and allocate it to the TIF, and 80% of our mobilization costs goes to the non-TIF. Is
Yeah,
that right?
once we get the actual bids and those are verified, we'll go through the sheets line item by line item, just like it's shown in the TIF plan where we've got total TIF, or total cost for the development versus TIF eligible costs.
Okay.
So we've got those linear feet of pipe. So if there's 800 feet of 6-inch sewer pipe and 300 of it is single family, then we'll just reimburse for the 500 feet.
Yeah, that's the easy stuff to figure out,
Yeah.
but you got your other stuff like your mobilization, your insurance, your bond, those other things that are all inclusive, you know, that you can't necessarily divvy, well, which portion goes to what? Is that gonna be based on the breakdown of the identifiable portions, or how is that portion of your bid gonna be allocated between TIF and non-TIF?
Russell Atkins, 8304 South Timber Oak Circle. Great question, Brian. What we've got is a map that actually scopes out the TIF eligible costs. And we're literally doing 2 development loans. The wording's all identical, but one's for TIF, one's for other development costs. So when the costs come in, we'll pay them through those different ones. Now, as far as reimbursement back, that happens years and years down the road. But as far as how we break that up, it'd be a scope item to the different contractors. I haven't thought about breaking up mobilization and things like that in the 2 different areas. Candidly, the majority of like the earthwork and stuff, it's gonna be more half and half, and you'd have to look at what your cut to fill maps are, and what hours you're paying for the tractor to pull dirt out of the northeast corner, and you gotta put it over here, and then you got the water truck that's gotta do the fill more than does the cut. So I've not got that detailed with it, but it's a lot easier when we're talking this RCP, this water pipe, this curb and gutter, this asphalt. Those I can break out real easy. But the engineered estimate, I think that's in your packets, it's got the hard cost at over 8 million. Brian said, no, we'll talk 7.5. So we did that, and then I think the overall project cost is north of 15 million just on hard costs. I don't know if that answered the questions, but that's the logistics that I'm going through in the office.
It's probably not an exact science.
No, sir.
When you combine the 2 projects together.
No.
Yeah, and yeah, we might use the AIA G702, G703 documents, but a lot of the contractors here don't necessarily adhere to them. They don't even know how to even fill them out. And so my pipeline guy does, and so I'll do that with him on the scope, but the other guys, it'll just be kind of broken up.
Well, when the costs come in, and I'm speaking particularly to Mo, we'll do it just like we do with the Sioux Falls contract for slurry seal. It's all based on a percentage. So Sioux Falls' cost for the slurry seal project is 70% of the project. Ours is 10%, and Vermilion's is, so everything's divvied up as a percentage of cost for the part of the projects you can't put in a line item.
And I'll also say this, is that I'm limited on, I'm capped. It's like a GMAX contract, or guaranteed max. I'm not cost plus. So if it goes over, it's on us. So it's capped.
Correct. Anybody else? Thomas?
No, I was just gonna move that we pass the resolution. Isn't that where you're going next?
Yes. We have a motion to approve. Are we approving a recommendation or are we approving the?
Approving the resolution, which is
Okay.
recommendation from city council.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve the resolution. That is officially the most I've ever talked about a TIF district and all of the ones that I've been a part of. Nice work. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Item number 8, rezone application for Track 2 of Aspen Park Addition. This is the one we just talked about, right? Going to industrial?
Going to institutional.
Institutional, I'm sorry, my bad.
So we went through and replatted a lot of the city property just to kind of clean them up.
Yep,
This was 2 lots, we made it into 1. It's just a detention pond there right now.
how much city property do we have left to rezone? Is there still a bit?
Oh, a lot.
Really?
This was just the easy one.
Okay, gotcha.
Make a motion to approve.
I have a question. Who, under signature of present owner of record, whose signature is that?
That's Harry Buck.
Oh, Harry's, oh, okay.
He's
The
the
mayor's,
mayor's.
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Brian made a motion, and Thomas made the second. Motion is second to approve the rezone. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item number 9, we are going to table item number 9. Is that correct? Motion. Okay. That's true. So I would entertain a motion to continue item number 9.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion is second to continue item number 9, which is the conditional use application for Brandon Wellness at Aspen Park.
I have
All
I have a question about that one, too.
I
Under
haven't sent that out.
signature of present owner of record, there's nothing written down. So like years from now, if somebody said, well, who did that?
Mayor Buck signed the original.
He'll sign that, too? Okay. Sorry. All right, thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second motion to continue item number 9. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. On to discussion items. Item number 10, residential driveway regulations. Does anybody know what this is about? Okay,
Yeah, I think for right now, like the highlighted arterial street.
'Kay.
So that's kind of up for discussion once we get a little bit farther on our transportation plan. So
Sure.
August 16th, Patrick and I are hosting a public meeting on the comp plan and the transportation plan to take some more public input. And then after that meeting, then we'll bring you the street functional classifications. So we
So-
can revise that highlighted.
you have this highlighted as arterial, but we might change the definition from an arterial to something else, correct?
Yes.
So we're not going to do anything with this until you guys figure out your language?
Yep.
Okay? Got it? Yes, Brian?
I have a question on this. Is there a reason why we use sidewalk instead of property line?
We had that discussion once here. Because of the curve and the property line, it's hard to call to measure that. Because it's an invisible line unless if you had
A survey done.
surveying equipment, and then you could, but I don't know if the city's gonna buy him survey equipment and get trained on it. Okay. Whereas
Sounds like
sidewalk
a
is,
great
there's a
idea.
line on a sidewalk,
Yeah,
I mean, to follow, to measure.
assuming that every property has a sidewalk.
Well, there's, the new ones will. Every new house built has to have a sidewalk, but existing houses, they do not.
Yeah.
I know, some.
There's some out there that
But all the
don't.
new areas getting redone are supposed to have sidewalks put in as of now.
Because the sidewalk and the property line are technically the same thing, right?
Well, so our sidewalks are placed 1 foot off of the property line, except for in the core area, they are placed 2 foot. So it depends what part of town you're in.
Your house, Brian, is 2 foot.
What's that?
Your house is 2 foot. That's what it used to be. Now
Okay.
it's all 1 foot.
We could certainly add a line in there, in the absence of a sidewalk.
We'll buy Paul surveying equipment and train him on it, because he is award-winning, so therefore, we can up his skill level.
Yes, but we don't want to overburden.
What?
Building inspector Clark. So we would put that burden on the builder to identify those corner stakes.
Okay, fine, whatever.
And then we do have the one exception for a cul-de-sac. That's measured at the setback,
Correct.
which is an arbitrary line,
Yep.
an arbitrary curved line.
Okay, the only other thing on our agenda is to review the building permits, which it says 9.
Well, I think that's a positive thing, at least it's 9 and not 8. It's going in the right direction. And it's
Was
gonna
it
go
8?
up when we get this other thing going.
There's a lot more in that report than just that one number, sir.
Yeah, but, that's the highlight, that's the headline, right? That's what everybody likes to talk about.
The 7.8 million Lloyd construction should be the highlight.
That's not a new home.
No, it's not new, but,
I mean, I thought the only thing was new homes. I thought that's what we concerned ourselves with.
no.
Okay,
There's other things besides new homes.
okay. Yeah, that one for Lloyd that's a nice one. How about that?
Almost all the communities in this general geographic area have seen drops like this, percentage-wise.
Well, I think,
We're not an anomaly.
I think even Sioux Falls has seen a tremendous drop in new homes, an increase in maybe apartments that have been built. We don't seem to build apartments in Brandon, so.
Yet.
Yet. And Mike Totes is on the list. Look at that.
Is he?
The very first one. Somebody's got a new deck.
Commissioner Toach probably should have excused himself for the review of the building permit list.
You're great.
Can I ask what is the $7.8 million one for?
The,
1.9 million, Lloyd Company.
yeah,
Lloyd, it's up in the Rovang Industrial Park. It's their
new,
new,
Brandon Manufacturing.
yeah.
Is what they
they're
call
building
it.
modular. They
They're
bought
building components.
the trust.
American Trust.
They bought American Trust.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Engineer Trust,
Yeah.
yes.
They bought. Correct. Yeah. And completed units too, or just wall packages? I think it's just wall packages from what I understand. Okay. Could be, okay. So there you go. That's what that is.
Begs the question, what are the contractors gonna do? They got people building walls for them, trusses for them.
Stand them up and nail them in. Absolutely. All right.
You don't get cold and wet.
What? I don't see anything else on the agenda, so I would make a motion or entertain a motion to adjourn.
I so move.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We are adjourned at 7:17.
Goes a lot faster with you here.
You're welcome.
I thought tonight was gonna go till 9 o'clock.